Good deal.
Good evening again. I'd like to call the community of the whole for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, July 20th, 2020 to order with roll call, please.
Walrick?
Here.
Weinhammer? Here. Savelli? Newdent?
Here.
McAlpine?
Here.
Collier?
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving to public comments. Once again, we have nobody here, so we'll go ahead and close public comments at 6:06. Now moving to the business at hand, a discussion regarding the establishment of licensing requirements for massage establishments.
Thank you, Mayor. Village Board, the item for discussion this evening is to review potential establishment of new regulations or licensing requirements for massage establishments within the Village of Cary. In recent years, the village has seen an increase in the number of these businesses in the community which are providing massage services. Presently, there are approximately 8 businesses in the community that do provide some sort of massage service as part of their operation. 5 of those provide only massage services. There are 3 that provide, in addition to other services like hair salons or other services that they provide in the establishment. The way that we've treated the businesses or identified businesses within the Unified Development Ordinances is they are personal care services, and they are classified as permitted uses within our business districts. So the B1, B2, B3, and B3R districts permit those types of businesses by right. We do require in the manufacturing districts that they would, if they propose to locate in that vicinity, require conditional use approval. Beyond the basic zoning requirements that we have established for personal care services as a land use, there are no additional regulations within Village of Cary ordinances regulating massage establishments. In certain instances where we've had a matter of concern that's been brought to our attention from the village's perspective, the village has had to investigate an issue through much staff time from police department or other enforcement entities to review the business to make sure that the business is operating as a legitimate operation in the community. The state of Illinois has established laws under the Massage Licensing Act which do regulate the industry. And the village is limited as far as what we can regulate beyond those provisions. But to better assist staff in reviewing these businesses prior to their operation or location in the Village of Cary and providing additional tools to the village to ensure code compliance, staff is recommending that the village adopt additional provisions to regulate massage establishments locally. The intent of these regulations is not to restrict the businesses from located in the village. It's more to establish guidelines for how they should operate, basically requiring a license to ensure that the businesses are operating legitimately in the community. So proposed would be to create a new license type in the ordinance, similar to liquor licenses that the village issues for businesses that provide the sale of alcohol. This would be a new license type that would be for businesses that provide massage services. Excuse me. And that they would require to adhere to minimum standards and similar background checks for their operation prior to operating the community. Would also provide the village with additional enforcement tools should there be a matter of concern that we would have to enforce and investigate the business. In the packet this evening, staff provided copies of 2 sample ordinances that we received from our attorneys. Each would establish a license type for massage establishments. Both of them are similar in scope as far as how they regulate the operation of the business. So some of the components of both of them are similar from that perspective as far as the type of items that it regulates, as far as the cleanliness of the facility, posting of price rates for services that are offered at the establishment, number of staff that have to be provided at the establishment when providing services, So those are consistent between the two ordinances. The first ordinance does get into more detail for both the application requirements that would be required at the time of application, and also for the enforcement or potential suspension of licenses. There's more detail in that provision or that sample ordinance that could be implemented here should the village desire to do so. The primary focus for tonight was to present the information as far as, if present an opportunity for the board to discuss whether there's a desire to create a local license type or additional regulations for massage establishments in the village of Cary. And if so, work with direct staff to continue to work on regulations, the draft specifically for the village, utilizing these two sample ordinances as a basis. And then if there's any other items that the village board would like to include in those ordinances, certainly we're able to discuss that and see if we're able to do so under the state laws and our ability to license. Obviously, police is here as well. So if there's questions that may come up regarding the ordinances or enforcement activities that we may have, I'm happy to have a discussion.
And thank you, Brian, Director Simmons. We bring this to the board because we have, over the past year or so, been contacted by residents
with concerns about some of the businesses that are
for some illicit activity in one of these kind of more of a shady type of an operation. I want to give credit to those that are running a legitimate, safe business. We're happy that you're successful. You choose the village of Cary to keep your business in, but this comes at a point where we need to be aware of these things, and we are watching. Since this was brought to our attention a while ago, that through the great police work and the tenaciousness of the police department, we were able to get what we needed. And so we just want to make sure that we are encouraging these businesses to be legitimate, licensed, and in the business for the right reasons. We don't want to have any other incidents like we've had in 2019, and we're going to do everything we can to prohibit that. So I would ask for any comments or concerns or questions regarding this. I think this is something that would be healthy for the village to adopt. So I know that there's a couple trustees that have asked questions of this already, and I think that you've gotten your answers. But love to hear from other people regarding this.
Sure, I got a question. So right now they're licensed from the state of Illinois. Does Illinois check their licensing or ever check on these businesses, or is it the responsibility of the municipality, which we don't have a code for right now?
Yeah, so if they're licensed through the state has various means that they would have to inspect or follow up on the businesses. By issuing a local license, it gives us more control or the ability to have more activity or enforcement to make sure that they're operating to our standards as well. So if we wanted to schedule periodic inspections of the business to make sure that they're operating in a cleanly manner and whatnot, it gives us more the ability to do so. And then if there's an issue that is arise, that there's a mechanism that we can have to review the business or with them specifically, and then potentially, if it comes to that, potentially revoke the local license for a time period that would require them to continue to comply with regulations.
All right, and you said there's 5 standalones that are just massage right now, and the other ones I would take are like chiropractic care? Or?
Yeah, so currently there are 5 businesses that either are operating now that are standalone or are approached the village about operating in the community. 2 of them are in the process of opening. So there's been zoning regulations. There's no additional requirements to prevent them from opening in town. The other 3 establishments have massage as part of their ancillary to their main business. So they have hairstyling, manicures, pedicures, those type of operations are part of their business overall model, and massage is an additional service they provide in addition to those. One of the ordinances here specified that the establishments that would have it more as an ancillary use or part of their operation, may not be required to go through this process if that was the desire of us to do so. But certainly if the board wanted every establishment that offers the massage licensing to do so, we could have those
And
regulations.
I would take it that most of our complaints or the issues have come from standalone only massage, correct?
That's correct, yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure.
In regards to who regulates massage therapists, it's the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. And when we did make that arrest in 2019, we did call them to ask them to review the business and review the people that were in that business that were licensed to perform those massages. Now, I will also tell you that we were just talking about this before the meeting, that there's an exception carved out in the statute that exempts those businesses that are solely foot, hand, or ear massage. So they aren't regulated by the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. So when we look at this ordinance, we'd like to make sure that we include those businesses in the licensing requirement as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the village board?
I do have a couple of questions.
Trustee Dudek, go ahead.
So maybe they're a little bit out of the scope of what's here, but I'm curious, based on our existing zoning ordinance, do we have any or could we have any of these operating in our core central business district massage?
Yes, it's the B1 zoning district would allow for that type of use to.
Do we currently have any?
There's one that's looking to locate there currently.
As an aside, I would think that, at least in my mind, as I view downtown, I wouldn't think that would be an appropriate place for a massage parlor, but that's, again, it's off the topic, but that's just my personal feeling, and I think that would create a different feel downtown. The second thing is sort of related to that, and if I missed it, I apologize, but do we have anything that restricts this operation, this type of operation, for being within a certain distance from a school or a church? Because that seems to be a logical thing to do for this type of operation, and I didn't see it in here.
There's nothing in the proposed ordinances that speaks to those limitations. I'd have to review if we can do that from this type of use. Similar, there are other uses that you can restrict that. So,
Do you know, is this one that you can or cannot?
It's on.
It is on, okay. So you've raised a couple, what I think are technically zoning issues, probably more properly considered as zoning issues. The location in the downtown business district would be a zoning concern, and it's a legitimate concern. If you want to make sure you can regulate, the board can regulate, the commission can review where the appropriate location of these kinds of establishments should be in what district, even if it's not just the business district, but the downtown business district, if you want to limit that area to certain uses, you can. And as to the issue of distance, that really is more typically a zoning issue for a use, whether you make this a special use or a permitted use. You can add that to the requirements relative to the use itself, the grant of the use itself. This, I think, is more specifically targeted at licensing to make sure that they satisfy certain requirements for their operation, not necessarily where they are and how close they are to one another. That would be a legitimate zoning regulation, that they can't be within a certain distance of a school, church, whatever it is.
Okay,
A lot like liquor.
okay. Well, I guess I'd go on record as saying I appreciate that they are two separate, to me, they're kind of hand in hand. And those are two things I would not want to see these operating within a certain distance of a school or a church. And I would like to have consideration given to restrictions as far as our core central business. But again, those are two different topics, and I get that.
and certainly I think if, the desire is to call out massage establishments as a separate use in the UDO, we can do so. Currently, they're lumped in or reviewed as part of the personal services use, but certainly we can establish another land use that would speak towards that and clearly define where they could locate within the village.
Thank you.
To your point, trustee Dudek, if you feel so compelled at future agenda items and discussion by the village board, if you'd like to bring that up for a future meeting to discuss that, I would support that as well.
Okay, sure.
I would just say, number one, I think that it is important, I think that many people are aware of the challenge that we had a couple of years ago with an entity that was maybe not a reputable company doing certain things. I will say, though, that I do know some of the companies and people that are currently operating these, and they are nothing but high reputation, very, I would trust them. I don't think they're doing anything nefarious. I do like the idea, though, of making sure that they are licensed and that we have licensing, because it seems to me like it's an enforcement issue, that we give us a little bit more control if something does go haywire. We want to be able to have a little bit more control than leaving it to the state, who knows when or if they would ever get to it. So I'm definitely in support of that. I did want to ask us, and I probably missed it, but what do they pay a year to get a license, an additional license for this? What would we charge for that?
That would be to be determined. So if there's a fee that the village would want to assign to these type of licenses, we can determine that as part of the ordinance, what that fee would be.
And could we make it a zero fee? I'm just curious. So is it something where a fee just because there's paperwork going through that we have to offset the cost of that? Or I don't want to punish a business either, if that makes sense. I don't want to double regulate somewhere where they're like, wow, I've got to pay, more things. So I just was curious on some of that.
Yeah, I think, and the chief may have a different opinion.
Chief. No, come whisper in the microphone for us,
Yeah.
chief.
I think it's to the discretion of the board. If you
Okay.
want to assign a fee to it, certainly there are additional costs to administering the license.
Yep.
And if we're inspecting the businesses more frequently, there's a cost that would be associated with that type of operation. But certainly if it's an area that the board felt that a fee was not made sense to charge in this case, we certainly can review that as part of the ordinance as well.
I think that we'd probably recommend a nominal fee.
Right. That's fine.
To offset the state
Correct.
cost.
Correct. I mean,
That would be my thought. I do not want it to be something that's punitive in any way to a business, so to speak.
yeah.
Yeah. And Chief did mention, there's, in one of the ordinances, it does, the cost for fingerprinting is associated there. And I think one of the draft ordinances had that cost to be offset as part of the application process.
So we would be, and I only ask this because I am, on my regular job, I'm regulated by the same Department of Regulation there, professional regulation, and I do have to get fingerprinted every so often. So are they not getting fingerprinted by the state? Are we duplicating it, or is there a reason that we want to? I'm just kind of curious on that.
It'd be part of the background check for
Okay.
the operation. So as part of their application for the village, there's certain limitations or requirements that they would have to adhere to make sure that they're of reputable pursuit.
Correct.
So that if part of the background check, similar to liquor licenses or tobacco licenses, we do formal background checks as part of those to make sure there's no criminal history that would warrant not issuing.
Sure, and would we be doing that just though on the owner of the company or on every massage therapist that has a license?
Yeah, it would have been, I think the ordinance says for every massage therapist, number
Right,
one.
that's what I'm reading.
But we don't go by names and dates of
Okay.
birth. We go by fingerprints when we start talking about criteria that would be disqualifying. And I believe it was convictions for certain offenses, felonies and things like that. And we do that for solicitors as well. So that's how we would make sure that, number one, we verify their identity. And then number two, that's how we, in criminal justice, are able to associate a criminal incident person is through fingerprints.
And just on another side note on this, I was just discussing this with Attorney Euler. Even like our McHenry County State's attorney is painfully aware of these situations throughout the county, and there's a substantial amount of human trafficking that go through these organizations, and this could kind of help prevent some of that or nip it in the bud. You know what, like Trustee McAlpine, I said, we have some outstanding services providers in the village of Cary. We don't want to punish them, but I think everybody's got to play on the same level playing field, that we would like all of the businesses that come into, be as professional as they possibly can.
Well, Mayor, speaking to your future agenda item, if I'm summarizing what I'm hearing from everybody, obviously it's a topic we'd like to define this ordinance a little clearer and make sure that we're discussing it. And potentially, having two different types. If you think back to the liquor example, you have establishments that serve food and X amount of food and those that do not. You could see a conversation being had by this group about facilities that provide multiple services, massage included, and those separately as an ordinance that only provide massage services. And maybe there's a little stricter or a little more in-depth criteria.
Point well taken. I'd like to hear from trustees Cavalli or Weinhammer. Do you have any comments regarding this?
I just have a couple questions. Is this a yearly fee or yearly license they'd have to obtain, or is this a one-time license?
It would be a yearly license. We look for it to be renewed annually, similar to our liquor license.
Okay, and then with the current existing businesses, should this pass, then do they have to get it at they'd have to get the license right away, correct?
Yeah, so that would be, if the village has established regulations in place, we would look for existing businesses to obtain licenses, so they go through the license process. We certainly can determine how long that first license would be issued for, if it's for a partial year or a year plus until the next renewal will be required.
Okay, and then last, I'd just be interested to see what comparable towns charge for these sort of licenses. Because I do recognize there would be, the administrative costs, and if you are doing more inspections and everything else, it's going to take staff time. That's all I had. I like it though.
Trustee Weinhammer, any comments?
I do agree that we should be charging a fee for it, especially, we do charge for solicitors and things like that. And just from what I read in the packet that was sent out to us, that it's supposed to really be there to assist with the police and enforcement. So I am definitely in favor of the additional licensing.
I have one more question.
Sure, Trustee Collier.
Businesses like this tend to have high turnover employees. How often are we going to be checking them for compliance and fingerprinting of employees?
So I think one thing that we required was, or could potentially require, is that they provide a roster of employees, and that when there are changes to their employee employment status, that they provide an updated roster to the village.
Will they be spot checked then without telling them?
We certainly could, through the ordinance would give us the ability to do inspections on the property. Periodically, they have to make the property available to the village for inspection. So that's something that the village would be able to go in and inspect and make sure that they have an adequate roster up to date as far as consistent with village records as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So similar to bartenders for some of our establishments,
Or
that
BASSET
they have to
training.
do the BASSET training and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay,
Certainly can do that if that's the desire of the board.
It's the same thought process.
exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, in speaking with Administrator Reif, I think we'll just jump ahead and put this on a future meeting to kind of drill down on this. And I really am intrigued by Trustee Walrath's idea about having different classes like we do for separate bars. And I think that makes a lot of
I do too.
sense. And these are good conversations to have. So it's a healthy conversation.
I'm sorry, Mayor, was there interest, Trustee Dudek had brought up about looking at, the zoning here of, he had mentioned maybe not in the downtown and having distance parameters around schools, churches. Is there interest from the village board for us to start working in the background on that right now?
I would think that it would fall right in line with that split services. If you have somebody that this is just a sideline to 4, 5, 6 other services they're offering versus the specific just the massage services, I think that's what we're zeroing in on, being a little bit more restrictive of, a little more in-depth research on. And I don't want to speak for Trustee Dudek, but in my mind, if we're classifying them separately, then maybe you would entertain that distance parameter in the latter case.
Yeah, I think to that point, just a standalone would not be something I would be in favor of. I don't know if I'm picking a percentage and said if it's 50% of your revenue, 20, I don't know if I'm that far, but if it was a standalone, it would definitely fall into that category.
So is the board, do they want to have a conversation regarding the zoning of said massage parlors
Yes.
with this?
Yeah.
I would
Sure.
support that as well.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Any other comments on this? Brian, do you have anything else that you need from the village board? I think you
No, I
got
think
some.
a good direction and certainly can go
information
back with
here.
both licensing and zoning requirements for them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good discussion by the village.
Thanks, guys.
Committee of the whole. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Weinhammer? Yes. Newbeck?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Collier?
Yes.
Walren?
Yes.
Thank you. We are adjourned.